Oh, good evening, Ian. Good evening, panel. My question is, could Keir Starmer's background as a human rights lawyer prove to be his Achilles heel?
Well, it's certainly yours, Charlotte, isn't it?
Look, I'm a human rights lawyer, loud and proud.
But you understand the point that Chris is making.
I do. We've all seen the headlines in terms of some of the people that Keir Starmer has represented. And I think, it's probably a bit rich me saying this, but we shouldn't perhaps be too closely aligned with our clients and our clients. I see Robert nodding, he likes that. I probably am quite closely aligned with some of my clients' interests because I consider myself a women's rights advocate. And I think we have a lot to do in that area of law in terms of helping to change it. But we represent whichever brief comes across our desk, and I fundamentally believe in the cab rank rule, generally speaking.
I mean, that line that Rishi Sunak had at PMQs last week was something like, well, I kill terrorists, he invoices them. I mean, quite a powerful line.
Very powerful,
But, I mean, would he have had any choice in taking that case to defend Hizb ut-Tahrir?
No, absolutely not. If he's briefed to do that job and he is able to do so, given his skills and his experience...
Give it to Charlotte Proudman, she'd like to do that.
No, I wouldn't have the skills and experience to do that, I'm afraid. But no, he'd have to do it. And I think that's absolutely right as lawyers, that we have to do sometimes unpopular cases. I've done very unpopular cases, particularly when I was junior. Now I've built myself a niche area of practice and tend to represent victims of domestic abuse, men and women, and indeed children who suffered violence. But, equally, Keir Starmer as a human rights lawyer would have represented all sorts of people, good, bad, evil. I'm afraid that's the life of a lawyer.
And I doubt whether, I think it was 2008, wasn't it? I doubt whether at that point he ever thought he would be an MP or potential Prime Minister. So you've got... Oh, you think he did?
I don't know. I couldn't... I mean, I
you
don't
look very doubtful there.
I assume not. But no, why do you ask?
Does your face give away things like that in court?
Terrible poker face.
Well, Robert?
Well, I love this phrase, human rights lawyer. I've been a criminal barrister for 20 years before I became an MP. I dealt with human rights every day. I didn't call it that. I just called it the liberty of the individual, the common law. Everybody who gets involved in legal practice will at some point be dealing with people's rights. But there is a point here. I think if you get a sort of subset of my colleagues who sort of hold themselves out as somehow, not necessarily having a specialist, of course that's important, but who let themselves get into a position where they are seen as identifying with the cause or with the client, I think that is a mistake. Charlotte is absolutely right to talk about the cab rank rule. That means, like any taxi, we have to take the fare that we are given. And over the years, I've prosecuted a lot of horrible people. I've defended a lot of horrible people. But it's not my job to judge them. My job, like Charlotte's, is to try and make sure that there is a fair trial process and that the rule of law is observed. We are ministers of justice, if you like, doing that job. And I don't make any apology about it at all. I think it's one of the most important services you can provide in this country. It's inevitable, I think, that when you get to the top of politics, you're going to start to get the sort of scrutiny that Keir is getting. However, I do depart from this idea that just because he might have, in the course of his career, represented somebody none of us like very much, that therefore that makes him a bit of a dodgy character. I think that's wrong. I think it's totally ridiculous. When I was Lord Chancellor, made it very clear that some of the rhetoric on lefty lawyers was going too far for my taste. When I practice at the bar, and in my legal practice now, I would leave my political allegiance at the door of the robing room of the court. It's got nothing to do with my work in court. I wouldn't dream of talking party politics to the judge or to the jury or to anybody who was in that arena. And I think that point, all my colleagues at the bar and the solicitors profession, everybody would do well to remember that. Leave your politics.
So when you said to Boris Johnson, I don't like you talking about lefty lawyers like you do, what did he say?
Well, he did what he did, and he said what he said, as did a few other of my colleagues. But he knew my views, and in Cabinet, if I felt that there was a moment, and there were a few moments when people went beyond what I would regard as appropriate and attacked the motivation of judges in particular, I weighed in. And I weighed in public as well to defend the integrity of the judiciary. That's the job of the Lord Chancellor.
I think the issue here is about a political strategy, and I think it's going to backfire, because the more Rishi Sunak criticises his opponents, he's actually highlighting the fact, whatever you think of Keir Starmer and his policies or views on anything at all, he's highlighting the fact that the leader of the opposition is a very experienced and very high-ranking lawyer in this country, and it will soon come to questions about, what experience Rishi Sunak has to do his job. And I think the British public have already come to their conclusion that he's weak and inexperienced and hasn't got a clue what he's doing. So I think he should be careful in raising this as a political strategy.
Simon?
Well, it depends what we're talking about. I mean, it is becoming very, very difficult.
Well, is it Keir Starmer's Achilles heel?
Yeah, well, no, I don't, and nor should it be, for the reasons we've been given. I've got a problem with lawyers. I mean, I've had so many arguments.
Two of us here.
I'm a journalist. I'm paid to tell the truth, to reveal the truth, to say what happened, and to get it as right as possible. You're paid to try and get your guy off, or to try and get him on. You're not about the truth. You're about defending him or attacking him or her. That was not an argument I won. So don't worry.
No,
but I mean, it was an interesting, if you like.
But it's not wrong, is it? Because you were defending people you knew were guilty.
Yeah, but look, we are bound by a code of ethics. If a defender said to me, "I'm guilty, but I want you to say not guilty and get me off," I'd say, "I'm embarrassed. I can't represent you. I'm out of here. Find somebody who's going to lie for you. I'm not doing it."
I've been on a jury 3 times. And
I've always wanted to be.
It is a fascinating and ultimately depressing experience. They are not a good idea, in my view. But watching the lawyers at that thing, I thought, what are these people doing? I mean, they know they're not telling the truth. They're telling a truth. They're paid not to tell the truth. They're paid to get their person out, repeat it off. And I totally agree, they've got to be there. It's a fundamental right to have someone to do that to you. But if you someone claims it's a superior ethical activity to what I'm doing, I just disagree.
Yeah.
But you do believe that, don't you, Charlotte?
I mean, I actually agree with Simon. I don't think what we do is somehow superior ethical activity. Far from it. And I think, I think there's a lot as well to be said about the adversarial system versus an inquisitorial system, where instead of having two sides really go hard at each other with razor-sharp cross-examination and taking every single point, having a system where instead you allow the judges or a panel to ask questions to try and reach a decision and to find the facts, instead of having, theatrical drama play out in court. So I think there are really important questions.
Can I say, I totally agree. And I by the end of these experiences, and it's an unbelievably tedious thing to do, I mean, the cost of the jury system is crazy. But at the end of it, I'm left thinking that the German and the French system is much better than ours.
No. But isn't there also, the question here, though, really is about whether it's an Achilles heel for Keir Starmer. And there's a broader question about the role of MPs here. The role of MPs is to legislate. It's to make law. And if lawyers think they can't go into politics because of people that they've either defended or advocated for, that's completely bonkers.
I agree with Dave.
Absolutely bonkers. So it really shouldn't be on that basis.
Just to deal with this inquisitorial, I agree in family cases, absolutely right. Actually, in crime, I think the adversarial system does work, because it does actually encourage, counterintuitively, the need to negotiate and to compromise. It sounds strange, but believe me, in all my years doing it, it does work. And as for the jury system, it's the least worst of the systems I know. I certainly wouldn't want a case-hardened judge judging me. I'd want 12 good people.
What about in a rape case, though? Wouldn't you potentially want, like, the piloting in Scotland?
I don't agree with that.
I know, I disagree with you on this. I disagree with it. I disagree with that on Robert.
To do that.
I think that when you have a judge who's trained in rape myths, stereotypes, memory, trauma, but understands all of those issues and is then having to give a full judgment as to why they've reached that decision, in contrast to random people making decisions where they're clearly relying on tropes and stereotypes and myths.
There's no evidence to suggest. Cheryl Thomas and experts have looked at this. There's no evidence. You're right to raise the issues, and I've been vested in rape cases for years, and I care deeply about it. But I think taking the jury out isn't the answer. We've got to sort out.
We should pilot it, though.
No, this is one of those cases
where women feel they're being raped all over again, and they're having to lose their phones. They're re-traumatized. We've got to sort that out.